Hey guys, welcome to another show. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've had an amazing week. We want to talk today about life after kids. I know it sounds like life after death, but it's just talking about it from the aspect of how children coming into your life can change your life. That can go in so many different directions, from the car that you may have had.
Yeah,
I
what you
know, like
can
for
get.
some guys, going from their single
Well,
free
do you,
life.
do you think as well the age you have kids will, because you obviously had your first child at, was it 18?
18.
Yeah,
You, how old were you when you had Luca?
31.
31. I was
Mm.
31 as well. I didn't know that.
That's a good age.
Yeah.
That's,
I
that is a
didn't
good age.
realise that. We were the same age when we had our first child.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
Mm.
31.
Yeah, I was 31 when I had Maya.
Mm.
So I think that might play a big. I mean, I can't imagine having a child at 18.
Mm.
That
Yeah,
must.
I wouldn't.
That's nah.
I know, because you're still pretty much a child yourself. I remember, going around to visit my parents
Mm.
and doing what I used to do before I was married or even pregnant. And I used to never walk down to the bottom step. I would like jump the last 4 steps. And I remember I was still doing that when I was pregnant, and my dad being like, "What are you doing?"
Child.
Oh my god.
Pregnant child.
Yeah, I was literally a child, so wasn't even thinking, just
18.
jumping
Gosh.
steps and just.
That's younger than
Your-
Ashley.
Yeah, my mindset at 18 was like,
Mm.
gosh.
But I
it
think
was not
people's
that
mindset
old
was
parent.
different back then, because most of
You
people,
adapted quicker as well.
well, most people in my age group,
Mm.
friends and anyone that I meet in my age group, they did marry really young, and in fact, I think 20s was like people were
What are you
beginning to
doing?
panic, like, are you going to be a
Yeah, but
wallflower or
I
left
think
on the
that
shelf?
society would have been that you get married and you have children,
Yeah,
but you were
so-
still 18.
Yeah,
Mm.
but I think you were raised different. And yes, there's that part of you that, because there were countries where girls marry very, very young, way younger
Yeah.
than that. But I think you were brought up in a way that you were being trained already or groomed.
Mm.
And that is pretty
So what's
much
the
what
goal?
we're
That was always
supposed to
like,
do with our kids. You prepare them for the person that they're going to become. So that was without it being said in so many words, there was that preparation that was being given to you to prepare you for who you were going to become. So we were given chores, where I see kids today have way too much personal free time, where when we were at home, you had chores to do every single day, weekends, and you could not do anything you wanted to do until those chores, and they were domestic chores. And even though I'm the only girl and I had a brother, my youngest was a baby, so it was just really me and my other brother that had to do chores. But every day we had to wash up, clean up after dinner, put away the dishes, we had to set table, put the cutlery out, set the table for dinner. And then it began as I got into my early teens, from 12, etc. It was like, help your mom. I'd have to start dinner. So when I came home from school, it was change your school clothes. So you were taught all those things. You had to hang your clothes. Your parents never came in your room and sorted your clothes out for you. You had to hang your clothes. You had to put things away, change into your yard clothes, and then go down and prepare dinner. And that wasn't much time, because my mum would be home like 5 o'clock or so woe betide if I hadn't done that. I remember one time nearly burning the house down because I didn't want to get the splatter, the splatter you get when you're frying meat. And so I'm standing halfway across the kitchen and I'm flinging
Throwing
wet
the meat.
meat into a pan, and I remember the flames leaping into the pan. And back in those days, people used to use styrofoam to line their ceilings. That was their insulation, which is like how that ever even
Asking for it to burn
became
down.
something, because that's such a fire hazard. God knows how many people died from that. But I remember the flames went up and the whole of the ceiling caught on fire,
Oh, wow.
and all the styrofoams melted. Like,
How old were you here?
I was I don't know, about 13.
Okay.
Because I remember my dad. I'm thinking, I'm dead. He's gonna kill me. Like nearly burning down his house. Da, da, da. But I think he didn't even actually tell me off. And I thought they were probably scared that I could have had a really serious accident, because you're asking me. I'm still a child at the end of the day to do
So
this.
you're not just cooking on your free will. This is what they
No,
instructed you to do. Okay.
no. It was always
But I
like
think
you had to
even
do those
with
things.
that, even with doing the chores, even with the responsibilities, even with all of that, I feel like your brain is
I
still.
don't know if you can prepare for parenthood.
Yeah,
just
like I
from-
think
No,
the
no.
reality is that
Chores.
you're still a child,
Yeah,
regardless of
Yeah.
what chores or what
Mm.
things you're made to do. That must be crazy, because you're literally a child yourself.
Mm.
You've literally just
But life has a way of making you grow up. And yes, I was still a child.
would you have a child again at 18, do you think, if
No,
you could go back?
No,
Why?
because I would want to have a life, which is what
This
we're
is
kind
what
of
I'm trying
talking
to
No,
about.
get
I
to,
get
yeah.
that as well. Not,
But I
not in
would,
the sense of
I
having a
would,
life, but
yeah. It was
that's
just
a very
I
short
want,
window of
yeah,
just
of-
You didn't get
and
one.
of being by myself. I
Yeah.
never
You
had.
didn't get to be by
I
yourself.
didn't get to be by
That's
myself.
actually crazy. You know?
I went
You
from
never even-
living
You've
as
never
a
been alone.
child.
You basically
in
went
my
from school
parents-
to
Yeah,
parenthood.
yeah.
Because what age did you
'Cause-
finish school? 16. Did you do A levels?
I went on to sixth form. Yeah,
So
but-
you were still in sixth form, no?
yeah. I know,
So
literally.
Your head in the books.
Your heads were not in the books.
Innit? So they're like, wrong biology.
They were in the wrong books.
Yeah, but that wasn't the priority. The priority. I remember my mum was like drilling into my head, oh, if you don't do this properly, your husband this, your husband that. So that was constantly something, and I didn't have a clue what she was
did your
talking
parents
about.
say when you were pregnant? When you told them you were pregnant?
What did they say?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What was their reaction?
Because you knew you were pregnant before you got married, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you tell them before then or after you got married?
No, we were already together, so we were planning to get married. So,
Okay. Yeah, but how did you tell them that?
oh, my
that
dad
was quite
like
taboo
awful.
back in the day.
Yeah.
wasn't it?
well, it's really-
Yeah, my dad.
I think when
was
that did
awful.
happen, it was just like, right. So when you get married?
No,
But
we
what
were
was the
going to
reaction?
anyway. My dad was awful. My mum was okay.
Do you think you would have got married if you wasn't pregnant?
Yeah, we were planning to.
Okay.
We wanted to.
What did your dad say?
He was just treated me really mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so
His only
Just
daughter.
imagine a West Indian father.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was like a name caller. That's the type of person he was back then. A side of him you guys don't know, but he was such a disciplinarian. That's the father I grew up with. He was just this strict disciplinarian person, and he would just go off the deep end. And I guess it was the circumstances leading up to it, because up until I met your dad, we just never got on.
Yeah.
I was totally in rebellion, full-blown rebellion mode, against his whole, the whole of what he stood for. He didn't build relationship. It was parent and child. So you didn't have that affection, like you guys hug your dad, you have that closeness. I did not feel that way towards him, and we did not have that. In fact, none of us did.
Yeah.
None of his kids. I think that grew later when we all grew up
Yeah.
and had kids. But we never. What you saw, you guys, when you came in, wasn't the relationship any of us had growing up with him. And so for me, when I met your dad, it was a breather for them, because I calmed down. Because suddenly somebody came into my life that calmed me down, and
No, what was you like before? This is
Why
like
are
the
we
question.
going here?
Yeah, but these are the questions I can like. When would I ever get to ask you these? Like,
Yeah,
To know parts
we're
of-
gonna have these.
No.
Yeah,
On
we're gonna have
TV.
On TV.
I've been television
We're
watching
gonna have
it.
it. We're gonna have memories. This is
Oh
stuff
my
that we
gosh.
No, but like,
recorded.
you know how you say like you ask Granny questions like as they're older,
I
and
don't
they're
ask them
so
on TV.
yeah. But then there's something I can look back on and remember these questions.
And everyone can.
Yeah.
You know.
No, but I feel like
Okay.
there's things we never ask them that will never be told because they have. By the time we ask them, they forget or they
Yeah.
just don't share as black
So
people.
what was the question? Gosh.
I can't remember. now.
Why were you bad?
No, what you said you was it calmed you down. So how was you before?
What made you uncalm?
I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna live my life because my
How old was this?
well, I started
Wait, maybe it's because you got married at
rebelling.
18.
I think I started because I remember him saying to me, you know, he'd say things like, "Oh, when you are older," and in my mind, I can't remember if it was said or it was something in my mind, like when you're 16, you're an adult, you can come and go as you want, because that was an issue for them. It was me going out was an issue, and being an only girl, it was a big issue.
They said when you're 16, you can come and go as you want.
I could go out, you know, which is what I wanted.
So
She
you took the mick.
interpreted it as she could
So-
come and go as she pleases. They said that she could
I was
go
gonna
out
say, that
maybe to
doesn't
the
sound right.
cinema every once in a while.
You go cinema every once in a while. How did you interpret your freedom starts at 16? So you can go cinema
And
this
therein
week.
lies the problem.
Wow.
Anyway.
You took what you heard and ran with it.
Anyways, oh gosh.
Like Michael Jackson concert.
Yeah, so it was like, okay, so he gave me the impression, you know, when you're an adult, because that was the whole thing. We weren't allowed to go anywhere. It was school, home, your books, school, home, your books. Had no social life. You couldn't have friends, you know, back in the day. That culture, they're not going to let your friends come round. So we didn't go to each other's house. So you had no social life. And so for us, it was like, okay, you can't wait to get to 16 because then you can go out with your friends. And so it would just be like, can I go to the movies? Can I go to the... we used to call it pictures back then. Can I go to? Can we go into pictures?
Yeah.
Can I go to the pictures? And then it was like obviously the taboo, which they weren't, which I kind of had to lie about, was going to clubs. They were very you know, there was a particular club which was really popular in Croydon. It was called Georgian Club. And so this is where all like young people would go and hang out. And so I would say I'm gone to the movies when I was going there. But that culture back then,
But what time was that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what kind of movie
you
is
go?
that?
I sure the cinema won't open at 2 a.m.
I
and,
know that's a brain of a 16-year-old, 17-year-old.
but
So that was my 16, 17-year-old years. And so I would go to that and, you know, that you had a culture then that your parents' friends, it's like a village that raised you. And so they would see you and you didn't know who saw you because you didn't know them.
Yeah.
But they seem
and
to
everyone's
know.
local. That's
They
the thing,
seem
isn't
to,
it?
yeah. And so they seem to know each other's children. I don't know if they passed around pictures. This is my child.
If you see my child outside.
This is an upgrade of what they look like now. I don't know how they did it, but I remember it was night, and I remember being going into the Georgian Club, and it's dark. It's like, you know how it gets. I mean, it was dark. It must have been 9-10 o'clock at night, and that was the other thing. It would be like, oh, Erica, you have to be in by 9. I was like, for goodness sake, I didn't say this, but I was like, you know, for goodness sake, nothing starts at 9. You know, clubbing, it's no one comes to
No
a
one's
club
even
at
in
9.
there,
No. So obviously I got in trouble every time with that because I would get home obviously after midnight, which is past my curfew time, hence the clashes with my dad. And mum was like in my corner. I mean, she wasn't happy how I was doing it, but she wasn't happy with the way my dad was responding to it. So me and my dad was clashing left, right and centre over all of this, me rebelling against the rules that he was setting down. And then he would do things like lock you out, put the latch on the front door.
Where you got it from?
Yeah, so he'd lock me out. And so at that point, I think when your dad came along, because I was just headstrong. And so we were just butting heads. And so at that point, he was stammering because I think I had just got to his last nerve. And
caused him to stutter.
sorry,
Wow.
I did.
That
I
is
know. I was just like,
caused him to have
in-
a speech impediment.
in 2 years of freedom.
Wow.
God, they even had seizures if you stayed single, bro.
I know. So when your dad came along, they just loved him because
Wow.
it's like he would say to me, "Stay home tonight," whereas I like, should we go out? He'd be like, "No, you just stay home." So he'd like phone with, because back in the day it was just landlines. So we'd talk instead of meeting, and so I suddenly was staying home more. I'd wasn't wanting to go anywhere else because your dad was never into clubs.
So what did you see that time you went out and you got drunk and Dad had to drive you home? Was you at the Georgian?
No.
What was that?
It was his friend's Christmas party, actually.
Christmas party.
Yeah, so
You had
his
to handle your
friend.
liquor?
I wasn't drinking, so that was the thing. I didn't drink.
So you got spiked? Was
They
spiking a thing back then?
gave me no, it wasn't spiked. So I'm not. My parents always had alcohol for when their friends came over, but we didn't.
In the front room?
And that was the thing that was kind of made me rebel even more because, yes, I was doing those things, but I wasn't a bad child in that I wasn't doing drugs, I wasn't drinking alcohol. I just like to dance and just like doing party. And so it was just that fun aspect of it, but I was fully sober. I wasn't
What dance moves were you doing?
intoxicated. Sorry?
What dance moves were you doing?
Oh, kinds, whatever,
Can we have a
Dominic.
demonstration?
Um,
Oh, wait, no, you see the butterfly.
yeah, so when I met your dad, obviously he never liked that whole clubbing scene.
yeah.
So we stopped that straight away from the beginning. And we just started making plans. Your dad said he went and asked my dad if he could marry me. And that was, we started
So
making
did he
plans.
ask if he could marry you before or after you got pregnant?
Before.
So,
So we
When you
started
found out-
dating in December.
oh wow.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. And then he proposed
Yeah.
when?
It was like within a month.
Gosh.
He asked, he went and spoke to my dad.
Yeah,
So
we'll
So
tell
how
people,
did you
bro.
feel? Do you remember that day when you found out you were pregnant? What was your feeling? Because obviously back then as well, it
I
was
know.
very like taboo.
For 100 emotions at once.
yeah.
Were you proper scared?
Yeah, because my dad was not an understanding person. He was just, and that
What
culture.
did Dad say when you told him that you were pregnant?
He was fine because he wanted to go that way. He wanted marriage. He wanted a family. You hear him say it all the
Yeah.
time since he was 12.
Yeah.
He's always wanted to be married. He wanted a family, and he felt he'd met the person that he wanted to have a family with and settle down with. So he was happy about it. But for me, obviously, I was still living at home
Yeah.
and having to live with my dad, who would be nice to your dad. He
Yeah.
wouldn't. But then when it's just us at home, then he would just be mean.
Yeah.
Because for them, that culture was about pride.
Mm.
And it was about you humiliating them and shaming them and all that kind of stuff. So, so they worried more about what people thought and, appearances. It was all about appearances
Yeah,
with
of
that
course.
generation.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying that's
I
not
think
still
'cause
there. I think
it's such a
still there
small
to a
community,
degree.
I think.
Yeah,
That's
it was a small community. I mean, it's not like people didn't
No, but they
because
were like, yeah, Theo,
no, but at the end of the day,
Belly
and
big.
that all fed into my
She get no
rebellion. No, but it fed into my rebellion because they were all, for me, it was like, you're all hypocrites because my mum and dad had me and Anthony before they got married.
Yeah.
So they weren't married when they had 2 children. Before and so for me, when he was saying mean things to me, I'm thinking, I can't even remember. I probably said it. I was that rude. But for me, it's like, well, you guys are such hypocrites because that generation, they all had kids out of wedlock.
So what would you have said if
Even-
any of us had kids that would look?
Oh.
Oh.
No, I mean, obviously,
Yes, we're
as
raised
a
in
parent,
different in church as well.
and
so it's a different
we're
aspect.
raising is different. You're raising kids with different values. You're raising children in a totally different environment. So I mean, we've had that. I had that with Danny. But you make the best of it. I don't remember ever calling her any kind of name or treating her any different. The only issues that we had was the father of the child was an issue because of the person he was. But otherwise, I felt, I mean, you were there, was very supportive of her. In fact, fighting for her and fighting for that child, which we're so proud of now. He's grown up to be an amazing young man, but it was never pushing away. Whereas that generation, it was like, you know, it was that whole generation back then. Like if your daughter got pregnant, I mean, I was getting married anyway, but some friends that I know, that you just got kicked out. Your parents would kick you out, and you'd have to, you know, can you imagine at 18 getting kicked out of home in that situation?
Of course.
And it's like, how do you survive? And this is where I guess people went to the council, because then the council would provide a home for them. So girls back then, some girls actually went and got pregnant on purpose to get a council place. They still do. They went and got pregnant intentionally, because then you get put on benefits.
You get support, you get money, you don't have to do nothing.
Because you know, this isn't just me that had that strict. I mean, it was so strict. It was very difficult not to rebel. You either rebelled or you bowed completely. And that was what happened with my second brother. He was just so scared of the discipline and what would happen to you. I mean, I think today many of those parents from that era would have probably gone to court. I've had friends where the parents abuse them physically. Like I'm talking beatings till their skin cut. I'm talking hot things being thrown on them. So that's the kind of strictness I'm talking about, where you couldn't, I mean, taking a biscuit would be punishment for some of the friends I had. So you grew up with that whole strictness. So, you know, I guess for a lot of girls, having a baby, getting married, you just wanted an escape. You wanted to escape from home.
So how do you feel like having your first child changed your life? Was it, do you think now, in light of all of what you said, it was like a welcome escape as opposed to like something that was burdensome? Or how do you feel like it changed your life?
I didn't feel like it was a welcome escape. I didn't feel like I didn't choose that to escape. And I didn't feel it was a burden. It was scary to begin with, because when I had, we're gonna get Q&A. But it was like, okay, the whole no information era, no one telling you, didn't go to parental classes, don't know if there were any, wasn't offered through you know, the doctors or anything. But I remember going through pregnancy and just buying books to find out what is happening, because you that culture back then, your mum never told you nothing, and you didn't have that kind of relationship that you could sit down and say, oh, you know, you just didn't have those. Parenting relationships are very different back then to today, and it's very different to how we raised you guys, because we saw all of that was missing, and we tried to make that story different for us. And then I remember going into labor, and I was like, what on earth is happening? I didn't have a clue. I had no clue what it's gonna be like. So I was like petrified. And I remember going to the hospital, and the whole thing was so traumatic, to the extent I think I waited nearly 6 years before you came along, because I needed to get over the whole trauma of pregnancy, which I threw up for the whole 9 months. So it changed my life, and suddenly, even from the onset, now I'm sick all the time. I remember having to spend I'd go to work and I'd be in the sick room because I was just throwing up non-stop. I'd throw up on the way to work, on the train. So my life drastically changed, and now I'm finding myself that I'm a new wife. I'm about to be a mother, and it's like all of these things. It was a bit scary.
All
It
at
was a bit
once.
scary, but I felt I had a support from my mum. She would always come by, and I felt like she was there, even though it wasn't so hands-on, but they were there. So I just still felt like I still had some kind of safety net, type of thing.
What do you wish you were able to do more of before you had children? Like, if you had a longer period between,
I'd
before
have
you got
loved to
married or
have
had
worked
kids, worked.
and find
Like a
myself.
career-wise, or-
Yeah, I would have loved
Okay.
to have had the time to enjoy
Mm.
exploring work and
Yeah.
what things I enjoyed doing and the freedom
Mm.
of spending more time working.
Okay.
So then you ended up finding jobs that now I need to find a job that fits around children
Yeah.
and location. So you couldn't work too far from home because obviously you needed to pick up. Then you had to look at childminders because now you got to drop the kids off so that you could go back to work. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you don't have an income. So yeah, it was quite challenging.
Okay. What was the hardest thing about parenting?
Hard.
Yeah.
I think with the first one, it wasn't so hard because you had your rules and you pretty much put into practice how you were raised, and that's what you don't realize a lot of the times. You will
Was that intentional or subconscious?
intentional. I was very I did put in the disciplines because you're raised with disciplines. You didn't throw the baby and the bathwater out. So you're raising your family because we were raised, that you behave. Those were some of the principles. You behave. So our new training began in the home. So you're very conscious of training, obedience. Obviously, Michelle was only 7 when we became Christians, when we got saved. So I was still young in parenting. I had Michelle and then I had Sarah. So, and then it switched because I had a completely new amount of information. So that changed up my parenting methods and some of the things. So that added to that because now I'm introducing something else into my parenting. But I think because I didn't have that gap that most people have. So when we talk about life, how's it changed? It didn't feel like much had changed because I went from that to that. And when you're having a baby brother, you were doing those things anyway, where you're having to times where we had to babysit, and especially like my mum and dad both worked. So during the school holidays, you had to look after your baby brother. Whereas when we're in school, he would go to a childminder, which was literally across the road. And that was the other thing, having to pick him up when we came home from school. You'd have to go and get him. It was literally someone across the road. You'd pick him up, bring him home. And yeah, there's a lot where you were pretty much kind of having to help look after a much younger, because my youngest is about 10, 11 years difference.
So what would you both say is one thing you've learned about yourself as a mother?
One thing we learned about ourselves. Your capacity. Your capacity to probably not so much learn about yourself, but it's like your capacity to be organized, because you cannot, and you just cannot get to be lazy, because you can imagine most teenagers just want to stay in bed and just have those moments where, like anyone that's got teenagers, you find that usually you can't get them out of bed. They just want to lay in late. I guess we never had that growing up, because it was all Saturday. You had to get up early because you got to clean the house and dust and polish everywhere. And we only had a small lane on a Sunday morning, and that was it. But I think for me, it was like I had to be disciplined. I can't be that child anymore. Now I've got kids. I've got to get up and I've got to take care of this little human being. If you don't get up, they don't eat.
Mm.
No, there's no one, they can't change themselves. And so I think discipline for me was within myself.
I think for me, it's probably taught me how resilient I can be.
Mm.
And I think that if I hadn't become a mom, I don't think I'd ever know to what extent I could stretch myself.
Mm.
I think for me, obviously, mum had her first child at 18 and obviously had to deal with the whole dynamic of not, getting to kind of live that life of, exploring yourself, whatever. I did. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed myself before I got
you had a
married.
good run.
And yeah, I did. I did a really good run. I probably had about 5 more years in me, but I did. I had a good run. I travelled. I've made friends with so many people. I've studied abroad. So in that aspect, I was very fulfilled. But I think, obviously, with parenting, becoming a parent, you never know how it's going to happen and in what environment it's going to happen. And I think for me, a huge learning thing was actually having 2 of my children in Australia. And I remember going through that process, and you have to figure it out because you don't have your village, you don't have your support network. And so you kind of have to draw down from a place. And I always worked the whole way through. So I worked all the way through both my pregnancies, and I actually took the kids to work with me. So I actually never had maternity leave either. So, I remember being in staff meetings and being so tired, but I actually trained my kids to nap during the staff meetings. I don't know how, but both of them would nap during the staff meetings. I trained them to fit my schedule so I could still work and everything. And I think that there's so much that you just learn to do as a mum. And I think that I remember crying and calling mum because I think I got home from the hospital, and I remember that moment or that feeling when I gave birth to Maya and none of my people were there. It was like
I think,
you know what I mean?
because you see that with people. It's like when they have a child, you want everyone.
Jason's family came in, but I didn't want them.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
yeah.
That's
It
first
was,
people you want to see.
it wasn't my people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like you've had this
Amazing
monumental
it's an
It's a
amazing
life-changing
experience, but
time,
but then it's like you can't share it with anyone
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
care about.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think
Whereas it was different with Dominic
Yeah.
when he had his first one. I
Yeah.
was there.
yeah.
Kadisha's mum was there, so we were
Exactly.
all
Like
of us
Lion
was
King.
in the birthing suite.
And I actually
Together.
remember really clearly, I was on the hospital bed and Jason, just being Jason, was just excited that he just had a child. So he went and got his family, and I was still undressed and everything.
when everyone walked in.
Yeah, and so he walks in with not even just his mom, it's his uncle, his dad, his stepdad,
Yeah.
and I remember the midwife looking at me and looking into my eyes, and she literally covered me and said everyone needs to leave.
Yeah.
And she it's okay. And it was just that moment where she saw this is a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home and just simple things like I don't know how to wash their hair. I remember calling you and being all those things that those passing downs or that sharing those moments or whatever.
Yeah.
And so for me
Yeah,
it was
because I only got to do Ezra.
well, that's what I
Because
said
that's
to Jason.
our
So
little,
that's-
but our little
Yeah.
family tradition. Because even I was there with Danny with her first
Yeah.
one, and I remember giving her a shower
Yeah.
after she gave birth and getting her dressed
Yeah.
and getting her back to bed. And again with Kadisha, I was there, and then the tradition of washing the babies
Yeah.
for you, that first
Yeah.
bath and washing
Well,
their
that's
hair.
why I said to Jason, I'm going home to have my last, because I was like, if this is going to be, because Jason was always he only wanted 2, and I was like, I'm having a son. You can do whatever afterwards, but I'm having a son. and I remember saying to him very clearly, you won't take this away. Like,
Mm.
I need to at least experience it once where my mom
Yeah.
is there, like,
Yeah.
with me, because it was like, I'm never gonna get to redo this.
Yeah.
Like, if
we can't.
if I never get to have my mom, like, she would never have, like, I will never have that experience. Like,
Yeah.
the only birthing video
Yeah.
I actually have.
I actually remember saying to you before you started, I said, don't have any babies until you come back home.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, well,
for me,
we won't go to that,
yeah,
but
but for me, it was like, it's just, as I guess as a mother as well,
Mm.
you want to be a part of that.
yeah.
Because I was there for Luca. Case, I think we were abroad. Miko was
One was on a Wednesday. I think was it Case?
one was lockdown.
I think Case was
And one was where, you know,
straight
the
after
hospitals
service
were still
on a
being
Wednesday.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
We went straight, and then literally about half an hour he came.
and it was just, for me as a mother, it's just a moment that you want to
Yeah.
share, especially if it's your daughter.
And it's actually quite traumatic, and it's something I've actually tried to explain to Jason, and I just don't think he gets it, that it's actually a trauma, like, when you go through that by yourself, and then it's also like they're going back home and you don't have a support network. So when I gave birth to Kayla, I had like 6 car accidents because I was just so tired.
Oh, wow.
Because I literally had no one to tap in. So I would literally just drive into the back of people and be like,
wow.
I'm really sorry. Like, literally just, I mean, like, it's like, I can't even say it's not my fault, because I'm just literally so sleep deprived, because I was still working as well. So, you know, you've been up the whole night, and Kayla obviously was born premature, so it took a while for all of her organs to catch up and to be whatever they needed to be. And so I think for me, it just taught me resilience. And I think even now, like even with Jason, when he was living in Australia and I was living in the UK, I think I've learned about myself that my love for my children is so deep and so wide that literally you can pull out of yourself something that you didn't even know was possible. And, you know, you look back at the things that you do and you're like, how did I do that? But I think that parenting and becoming a parent, whether male or female, I think it's one of the most phenomenal things that could ever happen to somebody, because I think marriage you can walk away from, do you know what I mean? Like, you know, and you get something in return. Like with kids, I think it's one of those things where it's the most selfless thing you'll ever do in your entire life, and it's the most, I think it's
What's that, having children?
yeah, I think
Raising
it's the
children.
most, raising children, like
'cause,
it requires
the
you laying down
yeah,
yourself every
I know,
day.
but some people don't.
Yeah, they
And
have
you know,
kids
when you said that, that's why I asked to clarify that, because I see people bringing children into a very dysfunctional environment, and my heart goes out to the child, because not everybody has that mindset.
I
And
think
they
you have
don't
to-
see-
but-
yeah, but there's children that are being made, children that are being born, and they're coming into a very selfish
But I think that for me,
environment.
that you've got to fix up if that's your
Yeah,
mindset.
yeah.
Because I think for me, you know, I know we say God, husband, kids, but for me, my kids sit right under God, because if you're not going to come correct, there's no way I'm choosing a man over my kids. Like that's not going to happen. And I've always had that mindset of, I'm the only person that can protect these kids, and I'm the only person that can steward these kids in the way that God's instructed me to. And so the burden of that reality, I think, was on me from day dot. Like I always knew, and I think similar to Dad, like I always wanted to be a mom. That's the one thing that I knew. Like for me, I remember I used to say to you, like, I don't mind not getting married, but I wanted to have kids. Remember I said I wanted to do surrogacy, and you were like, you can't do that, because I was like, it wasn't so
Surrogacy.
much. Remember you were like
No, I don't.
horrified.
Oh yeah, that's probably
Because-
why I'm like,
because that's-
erase.
Because that's the one thing that I knew I want, like I was born to do. Like I was born to be a mom. And I think that when you go in with that, like you understand the gravity of the responsibility of
That's the word right
of
there.
having
Yeah.
and
these little
stewarding
human
and
beings.
the intentionality
Yeah.
that's needed. And so for me, like with Maya, with Kayla and Ezra, like even like I was driving with Ezzy yesterday and he was sitting in the front with me, and like we always hold hands when he was sitting in, when we sit in the front together, and he like strokes the back of my hand and I stroke his hand and we play with each other's hand or whatever. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so nice for his wife, you know, like it's going to be like the most natural thing for him to like just lean over.
What did you say the other day? It would be so nice for his wife. You said something else the other day. That would be so nice for his wife. What was it? So like you only gets into your bed or something, and
yeah, like he snuggles with me, like, and like we literally snuggle, and then we both like just say, I'm so glad that and I'm like, I'm so glad you're my son. He's like, I'm so glad you're my mom. And I'm like, I'm so proud of you. And he's like, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, I love you so much, my son. He's like, I love you so much, mom. And like we do this like for like 5-10 minutes, you know, like just and he's like kissing me as I was doing it, and I'm kissing him as I do it.
That's a long way for Ezra.
No, but every night he does it with me, and it's just nice. And so for me, I'm just really conscious of like I've got to pass him on to someone one day.
Yeah.
And like what's that gonna look like? And I think that for me, you only get that one window, right, to get it right. And that's why for me, like the school they go to, the friends that they have, the activities that they have, like I'm just really conscious of that. Like you don't get to go back, you know, like for me, I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano. I've never learned how to play the piano. Like when you get to an adult, like it's hard to go back and do all of those things. Do you know what I mean? Like I always wanted to do ballet and learn how to do ballet. Like I didn't do that. Like, and so for me, I just want to give my kids every opportunity to be able to do anything that they choose to do. I don't want it to be where they want to become, I don't know, whatever they want to become, and you're like, oh, sorry, I didn't put the right things in place so that you could become that. So I think for me, it's just taught me resilience. And I think that there's so many people that talk about kids in a way that I think puts people off. But I think that if you have kids that you don't like, it's your fault. I do, because they can only be what they see modeled. And if you don't put boundaries in place with kids from early on, and if you don't teach them manners and respect, they're not going to be very likable humans. You know, that's the reality. And I actually genuinely like my kids. Like I was even looking at Kayla in the hospital, and it's just like I love her brain. Like I love the way it works, you know. Like she had to take so much medicine and she had to have so many painful things, and like she'd literally talk herself into it. She'd be like, okay, Kayla, come on, you're gonna do this. This is what's gonna get you back into school, Kayla. This is what's gonna get you back into doing what. And she's doing this whole talk to herself before, you know. And I was just like, you're a cool kid, you know.
Then she screams.
Yeah, but like she's cool. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I actually enjoy my kids. I enjoy hanging out with them. I like them, you know. Like even Ezra the other day, he'd like messed up the whipped cream on his waffles, and I was like, you've done something. So it was, you know, when it comes out like liquidy,
they're shaking it.
Yeah, and so I was like, no, but I think he'd done something to it. So even when you're shaking, it's still coming out liquidy. And I was like, you've done something to it. It's not gonna whip, basically. He's like, Mummy, give it to me. I'm the alpha. Give it to me. You know, I'm like, you're the what? Like, I'm like, who are you? Like, and where do you come from? And like, even like yesterday, he's brushing his teeth. So I leave him brushing his teeth, and he's got like the Rubik's Cube thing. And he like literally finishes brushing his teeth and he hands it to me. I was like, look, I fixed it. And he's just done the whole Rubik's Cube. Whoa. He's brushing his teeth. And I'm like, what kind of kid are you? Like, I was like, are you going to be like a genius or something? Like, but it's just so cool. Like, they're just such cool kids. But I think that there's a lot of intentionality that's gone into that. And so I think that having kids is amazing.
What about you? You've been asking all the questions.
You know, all the interrogator.
What was the question?
You...
What has it changed about?
Yeah. How has having children changed your life? Because you were living your life.
Yeah,
had a good run too.
Yeah,
had a good run.
You had a good run.
You
Thank
know,
God you had kids with Kadisha.
This was never any other option. But yeah, like I said, you can never prepare for how kids will mold you in a sense. I think there's like, obviously your partner, you change with your partner, and then I think when you have kids you change as well. I think what I learned is my patience with kids. I think that's and self-reflection, I'd say. Like, even the other day I wrote, just in my notes, I just started writing, like, I just wrote all their names out I just wrote them like a letter, not a letter, but just like a timestamp of where it was today. The day Miko coconut his head, yeah. So I'm writing them what happened on the day.
There was a kid threw something and hit him in his head.
Yeah, the preschool.
Really big thing.
The big coconut.
Like, what did they throw? It looked like he'd been throwing a brick in his head. It was that bad.
Like in Home Alone, you know, when he slips in the brick, hits him with the thing.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I just wrote them like a present tense moment, whether they read it or not. I don't know, but it's something I want to do more often. And I just wrote them on their character and what I want them to, you know, how they are now, or, you know, as they get older, and be mindful of, you know, who you surround yourself with and the benefits and the negatives of certain personality traits they have, and something that they could look back in 10 years and say, oh wow, like that's how I am now, or there's certain things that I've gone through now that I can look back at. And I wrote one for like Deesh as well, just where we are now, just to look back at. It's almost like what's those things where they bury your time capsule thing, right? So it's like I can look back at it and think where we were. Like if I think about it now, a year ago, where were we? There's only so much I can remember, you know, or what we was doing, or how we felt, or what was going on. So I think I'm a lot more intentional about my self-reflection of myself as a dad as well, and how they perceive me to be. Because when you're talking about granddad and stuff, I was wondering, how often do you think they reflected on how they are as a parent?
Yeah.
And how you will remember them by. Because that's something I constantly
people don't.
I constantly
I think of that because I think, you know, like you're not going to have this amazing relationship with your kids when it starts at like 16 or 18.
100%.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's what are we doing today?
I got so many memories before, long before then. Like even like probably even like younger than Luca, like Casey's age. I probably got memories from that age.
Yeah.
And you don't realize those things, like how you are. You almost have to grow with them. Obviously, like Luca was our prototype. It's like our experimental. Like we've learned things with him, and I tell them often as well. Like I know it's a lot of responsibility. Like being the oldest,
and only 4.
Yeah, and you're the oldest boy, and you know you get a lot of slack of things you do because your brothers copy you. And I say I'm conscious of how much pressure there is on you.
Yeah.
But I just want you to make good decisions because you are being watched, and you know. It is a lot of responsibility, but it makes you that much special, much more special because you're a leader.
Yeah.
And your brothers depend on you to show them the right way. And I try not to make it so heavy on him, but just a conscious thing that he does where, you know, not jumping on the sofa or silly things that he does, like, but just, you know, just to be in the back of your mind, like you're being watched and be mindful of that.
I know for me, I'm constantly like, you know, I think because the way that they seem so grown up and the conversations that they have with you that you can forget. He's only 2.
They're babies still.
They're babies. And so for me, it's like, you know, I'm just mindful of not putting too much pressure on them. And I think as a child growing up, if a parent isn't mindful of that, we're loading, like what I was saying to you, where, you know, you had to do all of these things as a child, and it's like, were they even mindful that we actually were children still? We're actually really young still, and I think it would change your development if parents would remember that, you know, you're just a child, and I guess they were raised the same way, that they had to do chores. And I remember as far back as a very small child in Jamaica, where even my dad's mother, her treatment of me and the things that she was asking me to do was not something you'd ask a child to do. This is grown-up work. And, you know, we can put a lot of responsibility, and I say that to say there are people that have kids at home that are putting adult responsibility on them, and they're not ready for the burden of that. There are children that are having to, and yeah, I get it, you know, for them to grow up, but they're not really a helper per se. Yes, you're training them for future, for the adult that they're going to become, but I think we still need to also remember that they are not, this isn't their problem. If there's a problem, as an adult, I need to solve the adult problem. I don't put it on my child. So I don't think any of you can remember having to deal with problems.
No, I think
because we didn't put that on you.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents do. Like, there's a lot of, I don't want to say single parents, but it's like when you almost is like when there's that gap of, I think especially when like mums have boys, it's like they can almost blur that line of there's not a father there, so you sort of take on certain roles, and
he becomes that.
And then you look at him as that support, which I get. If it's just you two in the house, and that is the male in the house, you can almost start to like subconsciously put a lot more pressure as a.
But I've seen the other side of that, where the child is now burdened
I think that we
by
forget
you know, it's almost like the mother is putting that husband
that's what I'm saying.
type of thing. And then if she's upset,
because there's that want as well.
But then he's worried.
You know?
He begins to carry worry
of course.
and all of those things because he's worried about her. And I think that's a little bit unfair.
Well,
but I don't think it's intentional
for
all the time.
children. I think that first of all we've got to realise that children are children for a reason. So they are in a learning stage of life. Like that's the reality. And I think sometimes we get so like annoyed when they're not behaving like adults, but they're not supposed to behave like adults. That's the whole point of why they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
They're going to do silly things.
Well, they're supposed to, because that's how they learn. That's how they're going to learn how to become adults. And I think that there's sometimes not a grace for that. But also I think any time where there's damage to a child is where a child is taken into a realm, whether it be abuse, whether it be whatever, is where they're not there yet. And I think even if a child can cook, even if a child can clean, cognitively, there is a complete limit to what they're able to do.
And that's why I have a problem with what our education system is trying to do to children, and putting things into their minds they're not mature enough to be able to process that correctly. You know, and this is, you know, people laugh when I say this, but I remember being about 13, 14 at school and thinking, oh, if you kissed a boy, that's how you get pregnant. And, you know, today, like a 5-year-old would laugh at me and tell me different. But I think that is a child without that manipulation of their brain is innocent. And I fully believe in a child's innocence being kept intact for as long as we possibly can. And I think when we're introducing things, let's just take the sexual education stuff, for example. It was more down, yes, we had a little bit of that, but we were like more advanced in secondary school, basically. It was secondary school when that topic was introduced, and it was on no way level to what they show you nowadays and the information that they communicate. But then this is now being introduced to little tiny toddlers who don't know what this stuff is, and nowhere near ready for this stuff, and not emotionally mature to be able to handle the pain. I mean, look at grown-ups. We don't handle the pain very well of the emotional breakup of relationship. So how are you now putting that on a child when they're not developed yet for that?
The sad thing is, it's forcing your hand to almost have to be able to tell it your way.
I have a question for you.
It
though.
is. It's
That's
because it's like if I
need to get ahead of the curve.
If I don't
so
get in
you
before,
understand
then they're
it
going to
before
tell
how
it
they-
wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I've got to go and find the right book because the books that they're trying to get my
Yeah.
child to look at is borderline pornography. So I need to give them a cleaner
either way, those
version. And
kids
I
are gonna
want
grow
to
up
say
before they
to
need to.
parents out there that there are cleaner versions of books
we
that
learned in
isn't
biology and all
pornographic.
that. That's where we learned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you. So, God forbid,
Oh gosh.
if anything ever happened to Khadisha, would you ever remarry? Bearing in mind your 4 children,
I've thought about this
possibly
before.
5 by this stage.
I don't envision myself to have.
What would your thought process be in?
What age are we even talking?
I don't know. I don't want to put a thing on it
Yeah,
and make
okay.
it real, but
No,
I'm just saying.
I don't see
Like
myself as.
I'm just saying. Like obviously now, if you were to ever have to, if something ever happened, whatever, like for somebody that now is moving on, what would your thought process be?
I
terms
wouldn't
of-
have.
You wouldn't have.
No,
Why?
because
Say why.
because I have that very strong maternal instinct of protection with my children, and I would not trust somebody to love them.
That's not their actual parent. is what
Yeah,
you're
that's
saying.
not the actual parent, because I'm not trusting like that, because even like with I'm just even like that now. If with my grandchildren, it's like who's got them, who's holding them, because we just live in a sick society, and I know there are people, and I'm not saying this of everyone, but there are guys that will marry a woman to get to the children. That happens. That stuff happens, and there's a lot of abuse happens when a step parent, and it's not just men that abuse, women abuse. I've had a friend who it was a woman that abused her daughters, and it was like I won't even go into the details, but it was an older woman, somebody she looked up to, like a mother figure, and who used to look after her daughters, babysit her daughters. And she didn't even know this was going on till they were grown. And that's insane. So for me, I see how people are smile in your face, but once you leave the house, are you that Cinderella stepmother, where like when Cinderella's dad was gone, how she treated Cinderella as that evil stepmother thing. So no, I would have probably not even, my personal opinion, would not have got into a relationship until my kids I felt were safe in age.
Yeah. I don't know. Just I never envision myself getting married. I see myself having like, all the boys. If God forbid that ever happened, but like all the boys are growing up or something, and I've got the attic. I do like paint canvases and stuff, and attic and go into that era of my life.
What,
So you
painting?
become like a recluse.
Yeah, probably just walk around in my overalls and
How if you were on your own?
yeah, probably just like paint for fun and just have all these canvases around the house.
But I have so much respect for people that are able to step into that role, because I don't think it's an easy one.
No,
And,
not at all.
Jason's got a friend called Chris, and he married his now wife, and she had a son at the time who wasn't actually very easy, a lot of behavioural issues, and now he's probably about Ashley's age, probably I'd say now, and phenomenal guy. They've had their own child together as well, but you would never know that wasn't his son, like and I just think that there's like this, we
There are
just need to
people like that.
applaud.
Yeah.
Like I think that we need to
I
applaud
mean, if you
those
find that
people
person,
that are able to
yeah.
do that. Like I think for me, what I would say to anybody that maybe is raising children by yourself, and you're thinking of bringing someone else into the equation because there's no one there at the moment, I'd say that you need to let them date both of you. Like it can't just be about you.
Yeah, they have to form a relationship with
It would
the kids as
have
well.
to be that you're dating all of us equally. Like it can't just be about me, because you're bringing somebody else in that's
Well,
going to change their
and if it's going on to
destiny.
marriage, you're
Yeah.
actually not just marrying that individual. You're marrying the children that come with them. You can't separate that, and I think that's where the problems lies. Where you've had that, where marriages don't work, where there's kids.
But if you
because
see
they
them as
think,
coming,
I'm
comes with
marrying you,
kids.
but I don't. Yeah, I'm not marrying you, kids.
Yeah, if you see it as the marriage, like I'm marrying you and it comes with the kids,
Yeah.
rather than like I'm making this a family. You know,
Yeah.
like, I love I don't know if you've seen those videos where the guys are like, you know, they're either proposing or at their wedding and they're giving a speech and they give the son a speech or the daughter a speech and they're like, I vow this to you. And I think I love, like,
That's
I really
nice.
like that when they, first of all, involving them in the actual
Yeah.
ceremony. I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of kids can feel like
They're left out.
they're
Yeah.
just, you know,
that whole
spectating.
like, your
You're just in
mother or father's
Yeah.
moved on, but where do I?
you're being
fit
left
in?
behind almost.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's a traumatic.
I think you have to be very conscious of that as well. Even when you step into that role, it's not, I'm not taking your mum away.
Yeah.
If anything, you're gaining from the
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I think there are people that do it right though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there are. It's not everyone but I think, for me, it's that protective
Of course.
instinct that you don't
Because
want
you don't know any
to
that in
bring
this world,
somebody in that might harm. You know, that you wouldn't want to harm.
But you never know if, like, look at Granny. She
Yeah.
found like
A
a
little
little mate.
Bill.
It's not even always in the
just
form of like
companionship,
yeah. Sometimes it's just that
Just having
conversation. Like
someone,
at a certain point, it might just be that, and or some people that you just travel with, and you know.
I think a lot of older people
Yeah.
do that. You know, you see. I've seen where people in their 70s. It's
a different type of relationship.
It's
I
a
think.
different type of relationship. I met. We went on a cruise a year or so ago, and we were talking with this lady, and she was. This was her second husband. Her first husband had died, so they had got married in their late 60s. She was in her 60s. I think he was a bit older than her, and he was back on the ship because he wasn't feeling well. But their life started, you know, new family, new relationship in their 60s, and that's companionship a lot of the times, because he was a lot frailer than her. So you're in it. You got someone to travel with. You're not trying to do things on your own, and I think some people would struggle with that. You know, it's like, would you still travel if
think
you
I
were
would.
on your own? You know,
I think
because
I would.
especially when you see everyone's in pairs or groups, you know, it's like most people. Would you still?
I've always
think
like
taking those
enjoyed my
things.
own company though. So I
And
think where I
think
live by myself
as well with
well.
Dominic, you know, I think Dominic's met the love of his life. Do you know what I mean? So I think that sometimes if you've had that, then that's enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think, you know, I think a lot of times people are searching because they haven't found that.
Maybe.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that there's some people that I feel like they met the love of their life. I know lots of people like that. So I don't feel that void to fulfill
the
that.
need.
I don't feel the need to
I wouldn't.
fill
Like
that
replacing
space.
that
Yeah.
person's not
So they're
necessarily
never going to get
filling
replaced.
that
No.
void.
Do you know what I mean?
I could
So,
never replace your dad.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to.
I can imagine like you get remarried and then roll over and like, like you know,
Well,
like
I think
subconscious
for
to
you,
like,
Dom,
Oh,
like
gosh.
I think Kadisha's irreplaceable in your
like
life.
seeing someone else's
think.
face is like
I
when you
think
wake
that
up. It's so
Kadisha's
weird.
such a presence in and such a like the middle center of all that you guys are. Like I think she holds so much of it. I don't think that you could ever replace that.
No, I don't think that can sort of. I don't see that happening, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't think that would ever be. I don't think you would feel the need to replace that.
Yeah,
either.
I'd rather dwell on the memories that we have than try to rewrite new ones with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very somber.
Yeah.
No, you know, it's just like I don't want to like write over what we've had, you know, and it's just like
It's like your dad says to me. It's just be so many things you'd compare,
yeah,
or you'd
and,
be, because it's like,
and it's not fair.
Well, it's
I
not
don't think
fair,
it's fair.
because you'd be like, well, Deesh would have done it this way.
Not even
or
that
she
though,
would-
but it's like we could do something. And I'd be like, oh, Dee should have loved this.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's just like little things. Where it's
Yeah.
like I'd rather have that when it's just myself
Yeah.
than have
You
someone
can
else
sit in
there,
that
and it's
moment,
like
yeah.
I would have rather.
Because then
had
they're
that with-
like, you're not part of this.
Yeah, and I think
place
even like
I'm
I don't know if
feeling
you
right now.
you know you see people getting like heated arguments or something. It's like, and something will come out as like, yeah, but you're not, you're so and so, or
Oh wow,
Mm.
and that's hard.
yeah, like that's a whole different like.
Yeah, I think like what Sarah said is like when you've had that complete, there isn't anything else
To
that,
replace it.
No.
It's not a void to be filled.
It's not a void to be filled, and I think I'd rather just live on with those memories of that relationship. And I see a
100%.
lot of women like that. Like when your when your granddad died, she was not interested and she wasn't looking to replace him with anyone. That was it, and that's who I am. That's it. There isn't.
No, I'll probably be one
And
of
I'm
them.
not that type of person. I'm scared of being by myself.
Yeah.
I'm not, some women, it's like they don't want to be by themselves. They can't imagine
Yeah.
having to make choices and waking up. And your dad does everything. So it would be having to me doing all the things that he does for me right now. And that would be even harder because then I'd miss him for that because I don't have to think about so many things. But it's just having that person that is irreplaceable. And, if you find that person, gosh, treasure them.
Yeah, of course.
Treasure them. Treasure all
Life
the
is
time
so
that you
short.
have with them. Because, we're talking about children, but life began with
Yeah.
the two of you.
Yeah.
And it will end with the two of you.
Everything
The
else was just
children
the
are in the
index
middle,
of the book.
But who you started with is who you end with.
Yeah.
And yes, kids are great, kids are there, but never forget who you started with, because who you start with is who you end with. And that is worth maintaining, building, that you don't lose each other
Yeah.
with the children that come in. Yes, they alter your life. Yes, they
I
change
think
your
that's
life.
key as well. I think it.
How did it change you and Kadisha, do you think?
I think what
Like
I think
kids
last-
coming in.
kids coming in, I
Yeah.
don't think people realized just from the day to day how much it sort of. It's like you two are here, and it's like a child comes in between, and then obviously we got 4 kids, so it's like the wedge becomes bigger, not in terms of, but you have to be more intentional with the time
Yeah.
you spend because it can
Yeah.
go week by week,
Yeah.
routine.
I like this example this guy showed for that, where, they had a couple. Then the first child came, the child went in the
Yeah.
middle, and the couple grew
They
further
put
apart.
the kids on the outside.
They said,
right?
yeah, you put the kids on the outside, so the couple,
Always
that's
together,
because you
yeah.
have to maintain that. And then the kids, as 1 child, 2 child, 3 child, 4 child, they go on the outside, not between the two of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to remember.
I think what we realized is we went to a wedding in Bali last year. I think that's when we left the kids. And that's when we realized how important it is to have us time as well.
Yeah.
Even so, every year we try to at least, even if it's like a small trip, just to do a trip, just us two.
Yeah. To maintain.
Because we do the family trips, and it's like, if anything, you see each other less. Because it's like, you got those two, you got to go for breakfast or whatever, make sure they're fed and they're in the water, make sure they're wearing their life vests, or, it's like, you're just parenting in the sun when you're on holiday.
I
It's not
learned
a
that
holiday.
lesson when we went to Fiji. And
Literally.
you're so excited first holiday.
I know, but you don't even
And then-
notice the place.
Right.
You're
You're
so
like, where did we
excited.
stay?
You check in, and then I remember we got to the beach, and I was like, you set up your chair,
Yeah.
everything.
Like-
Me, I never sat on the chair one time because you were like, they're gonna drown.
Literally, you can't sleep.
You can't sleep. You can't lie down. You can't
Because
recline
you're in
it.
outside of
'Cause
your
you're-
safety
yeah, like,
environment.
no, but
You got to
there's
watch for
water,
people.
There's people.
so
there's,
much
Sometimes
danger.
you grab
This
you
is
look away for
stressful,
2
man.
minutes.
And then you get back to the hotel. You can't
gotta
make
bath
too much
them.
noise
Yeah.
because they're now got to go to
Yeah.
bed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're feral the next day. It's like
It's
It's a
like
lot.
even that time when we all went to the beach and we were all there.
Oh, yeah,
but then
yeah.
it's like you're watching all the kids. And it's
It's
like every
draining.
minute, where's this
Yeah,
one? Where's
yeah,
Kayla?
yeah.
Where's Maya?
Yeah.
Because there's all these people on the
Yeah.
beach. And then I remember this man came and standing because you clocked him as well.
Which beach was
It
this?
was that beach.
UK in London.
Yes,
Oh,
UK
okay.
beach.
Yeah.
And I saw this guy and he's just standing there with his silly smile on his face, and I'm thinking, why are you watching the kids?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I looked at Dominic, and I can't remember which one was a baby then.
It's Case.
So it was a Case, because I think I had Case.
Yeah.
He just came into our space and he's watching all the kids, and I immediately I'm ready to take you down. But it's like you can't even do anything. I don't think I even went in the water.
No,
because it's like, where's this one?
And you just paid to basically work.
Well, the whole time I was like looking, my eyes were scanning between the crowds of people. Where's this one? Where's that one? And the more you have, the worse it gets.
Yes, it does. You need more eyes.
More eyes.
But yeah, it's important to have that time, even just
for sure.
aside from holidays, like on a regular, like just dating, and I think time can go by just even like when you're doing school and the in school routine, then you got church on Sunday, and then you're back on the Monday, and it's like you realize you haven't really dated for like 5 weeks or whatever. It's like it's very intentional, and you have to if you're not conscious.
And that doesn't even ever stop, even after the kids are grown. So we're still very intentional about investing. And I was saying to your dad, because we spent the whole day together yesterday, went on something we both love to do, and and it was interesting because we're sitting opposite each other for the whole day, and that's it. I don't know if they do those trains like that on purpose, because even though it's conversational, and even though there's another couple of people next to you, you don't even see them, unless you willfully turn your head. So your focus is on each other, and just that time and space. It was just such an amazing thing, and you have to talk.
But you know what the sad thing is? A lot of people wait so long between having kids and that they don't even know who they're married to at the end. So when they have the time, that's why so many people divorce after kids. They leave.
It just woke me up. I think Danny had just started school, and there was this couple there whose child was in the same, I think the same year, same class as Danny, and they had one child, and I remember that child was like their world. It was like everything was centered around the child. And I remember shortly after that, they had drifted apart so quickly. And I think they were divorcing, because that was like woke me up, and it stuck, that lodged in my brain from back then, that this couple made that child that center.
Didn't they talk about the kids?
And they lost contact with one another. They were in the same space, but they lost contact with each other. They stopped
getting to know each other.
They stopped building each other, and they lived and breathed that one child. So when that child was not, I think it was school. Okay, the child's not here. Oh, who are you? So with this stranger. And I remember this other couple, their child went off to university, and I think the mother moved up there so she could still be, they had one child as well. It's like one child relationship thing.
Following you where you go.
But then when the child finished uni, I think the husband was like, I'm not interested in you anymore. Because the whole life was built around the child. So it's really important that couples stay connected, because like I said at the earlier on, is who you start with is who you end with. And it's not just about transitioning through to raising the children, because this is where you see, because this is where it shows up when the kids are now grown. You see such a high amount of divorce at like our age, from 50 odd upwards. You see all these couples divorcing, marriages ending, and this is where it showed up what was neglected through all of those years, because now the children have left. This is when couples now divorce. That's why you see such a high divorce rate.
Was it an adjustment for you and Dad, like when the last person left? Like, did you have to like use a bit more intentionality of like, okay, like obviously there's a routine, isn't there, when you got kids in the house? Like you're so used to kind of working around that. Like,
but when did that stop though? Like the routine of because obviously we didn't all leave like.
Well, I don't
No,
think we've
you-
really
you-
helped.
It's just,
No, you lot
We
didn't
don't
ever
like a 3-year gap.
You know, you lot don't ever leave. So
so we're keeping you together.
no, but we
keep
no, but
it.
if you
Because I'm
think
strong.
no,
Keep
but
the
if you
love.
think back, we have maintained this as long
Yeah.
as possible. Obviously, when you lot, we couldn't leave you because you were underage, you were too young.
Yeah, but
We
you
would
leave me with
do
the sisters
things
though, right?
together, but we still did things
Yeah.
together. But the holidays, but then as you lot got older and now you're adults, we can go and
Travel
it
more,
doesn't.
yeah.
If you as far back as you can remember, we've gone away, and I remember you lot saying to us, "Oh, that's child abuse because you're going on holiday and leaving us."
It was.
But we've been on this intentionality thing for a very long time. That we need that time where we're away from everything, and not just you're not trying to get away from your kids, but it's just building that time together where you reconnect.
And you're not strangers.
We're not
Well, it
strangers.
takes us a few years for that to happen, you know. A few years of
yeah.
just neglecting, like actually, still getting to know your partner and growing with your
Yeah.
partner, and it can just cause a wedge, and
Yeah.
God knows where that can go. So.
Because who am I? Take away kids and everything.
husband.
Who am I? And
Yeah.
there's that time where you actually get to rediscover yourselves, and you get to being that couple that were before children came along.
Oh, I saw a clip as well. This guy said he went to his therapist and he's talking about, I think I'm a great father. I think I'm a good husband, this and that. And then I think the therapist said, like, who are you aside from a father, a husband, a son, or employee? Who are you outside of all of those? And I think that's a lot of people don't ask
Yeah.
themselves that.
Well, they don't, because then it's like, what defines me? Who am I? And this is what I love when I do like women's retreat.
You ask someone though, who are you?
Yeah.
And they'll start telling you about what they do.
Yeah,
or
because you're not your job
their
title.
name. Yeah.
You're not, and that's what I do that in the women's retreat. When I do a women's retreat, kids get left behind, husbands get left behind, and we rediscover ourselves. And a lot of people don't. It's like, okay, kids come in, and I'm someone's mother or I'm someone's wife. But when you go into that space, then it's like, okay, I've got to. What do I like to do? And you find that you've stopped doing what you like to do because you're doing what everyone else wants to do and what everyone else likes to do. And you lose yourself, and you can lose yourself in marriage. And even when couples that don't have children, you can still lose yourself. And I think it's that there has to come times where you just rediscover yourself and be comfortable. Like I went this week, I went for a spa day by myself. And I just loved it. I was just wanted to relax, and I wanted to get into just a space where it's just doing what I wanted to do and just being relaxed and not having anything going on. Not that I have any dramas or so going on, but it was just nice
Clear your mind,
to be comfortable, to clear your mind, to just relax and to breathe out and just let all the stress of life flow away. And you need that, and you need it individually, and you need it as a couple. Yes, you can have children, but if you've got like a great village, because when you guys went to Bali, we had the kids, and it's just having that community.
I think I had some of them as well.
Sorry?
I think I had some.
Yeah, but it's just having that community where you can, take that time to reconnect, rediscover, and go back to life without kids, even if it's just for a few days. Go back to having life without kids, because you need that. Because when you come back in, fresh wind, fresh patience, fresh everything. Because when you're stressed and living under that pressure all the time, you don't appreciate them like that, and you find you're snappy, get irritated at them. So we need, for their sake as well, time out so that you can come back and be the best version of yourself.
What's the greatest thing that you think having kids has taught you, Dom?
Well, aside from what we said before in terms of like the self-reflection stuff and the greatest thing it's taught me, I think not just this, but I think when Grandad passed as well, I think that put into perspective how short life is. And I think that's when I not thought about death more often, but realized I'm on that side of life now, almost like where yes, you have kids and there's all these kids around, but then you realize how short of time you have with your parents or grandparents and all the older people in your life, or even just in general, because people can pass it in any age, but you have more value on life and time. And I think being more intentional in terms of time spent or conversations that's had, or keeping those memories of those conversations, and allowing your kids to have that time with their grandparents as well. I think that's one thing you guys gave us as well. Like all the memories I remember, like of gran and granddad's, are like good memories. And even this morning I was making their cereal and I was grating the nutmeg in the and it's like I just think of cornflakes that granddad used to make with the nutmeg and
nutmeg.
Yeah.
and then even when he done the scrambled eggs with the sliced tomatoes, he said like the little things. I remember asking him like, what did you used to put in the scrambled eggs when he was here? I used to ask him, and he showed me how he used to do it, and he used to obviously do it with the whisk. That's why it's always like small scrambled eggs, also like lumpy.
Maya likes it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I still do it to this day. So it's like things that we've grown up with that I might not even know what they remember, what they keep from what they have with you, but I'm intentional on allowing those things to happen. Like dad's little thing is his ice lollies now.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though it's like they got dinner in 5 minutes, it's like, you know what, it's fine. This is granddad's thing. So, it's like,
feed the kids ice cream.
I don't want it to be like that memory is
sweets.
I don't want it to be that memory is tainted by me saying no, or I allow those core memories to happen. And granddad always used to do this, or Gammy always used to do this. So I think life, just value on life and how short it is. I think time, I had no value on time before kids. I think maybe you think you're here
like
for forever.
The
clock literally speeds up. I was in the sauna yesterday at the gym, and there's just a salt timer, and it's like 15 minutes. And I was just thinking, like, imagine like life is every minute's like 5 minutes, or every minute is like 5 years, whatever. And it's just like, life is so short.
Yeah, for real.
Like what you are able to do, and it feels like you're going 100 miles per hour. I feel like I was 20 like 5 years ago, but it's like that's a long time ago. It's nearly 16 years ago I was 20. So and time flies, where it feels like it was the other day. And I used to think 30 was old, and now I'm other side of 35. So it's like time really runs, and it's a shame that you only sort of value it when
it's too late.
When when it's heavier on the other side now, that there's more sand on the bottom than there is on the top. So but I'm glad I do it.
That's a good visual.
Yeah.
Is there more sand at the bottom than there is on the top? In other words, of what you got left.
All you're in control of is that middle bit.
Yeah.
That's all you have control of. What's happening right now? What can you do right now?
How are you gonna treat the people that's in your life right now?
Dwelling on the past cannot change anything. Dwelling on the future that you will not change unless you do something in the present. Yeah. So I think being conscious of what you're in control of.
Yeah.
A lot of people worry about things that's never going to happen. I think I saw a stat like people worry about 80% of issues that never come true.
Never do. Yeah.
And I saw another guy say, worrying about your problems is like, allowing yourself to worry about problems is like worshipping the issue or something. Because you're putting so much focus. I can't remember how he worded it, but it's basically like you're putting so much focus on this, and you're
the problem
if this goes wrong, or rather than allowing God to deal with the issue, or living in the moment. So, but I think
so I think the key thing is to enjoy life where you are right now. Make the most of it where you are right now. Do your best to make it as memorable, good memories, because it's easy to not invest in that, and each day we should be able to look back and be intentional. And I love intentionality, but I think for me, this conversation has made me think more about being intentional about what positive I want to have impacted that day and anyone I've been in contact with. And I think if we live that way, that every day I'm going to be intentional to make this, to what's the right word, to make it a day that everyone I've been in contact with has something memorable as much as you can. Make it something that you've literally intentionally deposited something that you're hoping will be a seed that will come back as a good reminder of their time with you.
You know, also, like, I think phones and devices are such a thief of time.
Oh my gosh.
Like even just yesterday I had this realization that, like, I deleted Instagram from my phone just for however till I feel like it, but just to come off of that, like, you know, you could just start sending videos and random things that don't even matter in life.
As we do.
Yeah, and it's just like,
forward the meme.
Literally, and for the whole day, like, I sent my friends like 50 odd videos. It's just like,
what are you
doing?
doing?
Like, what have I been doing in this
last
time?
Last night I was at work and I won't say his name, but one of the young guys that I look after, he came home and I always bring him, like, I always bring stuff with me, like Scrabble or whatever. So he's like, I'm never playing Scrabble. And I was like, sit down, we'll play Scrabble. And we played till midnight, literally. And he was just like, he was so into it. And he's like, this is so good. Like, but he never touched his phone once.
Yeah.
He literally was just so engaged, and even just watching him, like, you know, sitting there and he's like trying to figure out the word, and so can I put that there? And I just learned a new word, and we're having to like Google, is that a word? And it was just like, it was just so nice. And I thought, you know, like, that wouldn't, that presentness, you know, won't happen.
Yeah.
And he would never have stayed with me. He was like with me for like 2 hours. Like, do you know what I mean? And it was just, you know, it's just the talking. Yeah, but as we're playing the Scrabble, I'm talking to him, and then we're eating. Yeah, and he's eating, and he's talking, and he's sharing, and it is. I think that there's so much
That's
being
what's missing
lost.
from this generation.
Yeah, like,
because we're too busy and we're too distracted, and
we surround ourselves with distractions.
Well, we don't realize we're actually, like, we can go a day and we really have not taken the time to reconnect with what's most important. And that's what I like to look at. Who's most important? What is most important in my life? And I'm going to give my time to that. Because you were talking about time, you know, give your time to who's most important. Because what if they're not there tomorrow?
Well, I got this game on my phone as well. Yeah, I play Ludo. Yeah,
Ludo.
Oh,
Ludo.
You know,
I
you go
remember
around
the
the
game
board. Yeah,
Ludo.
so
Yeah.
I had that on my phone. I just deleted that as well because I just think any little time I have sitting down, I start playing this silly game.
Yeah.
I know you and Dad have your little games as well. You little play. But it's like,
I have one game that, well,
I must
I've
get it
got
from you lot, boy.
Dad likes his Candy Crush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
And then he's got the little one with the
I do the
battle
Candy
things.
Crush, and then I do. I like to do the Jigsaw.
Yeah.
But it's kind of it can.
Dad's like, I'm keeping my brain active. I'm keeping my brain.
Yeah,
It's
he actually
excuses.
is, you know.
Yeah, but for me anyway, I can't speak for you lot, but for me, the times I'm doing that can be well spent with the kids.
Yeah,
more
but you're
so.
in a different stage.
Yeah.
So obviously,
Yeah, of
because
course,
your dad will
yeah.
do that when he's
Yeah.
like waiting for me while I get my nails done.
Yeah,
So
of course,
they're
but-
in a different era of they can exercise
Oh,
their brain that
yeah.
way. We're like, okay, let's keep you alive today. Let's like not go to the emergency room, and
No, but I'm
let's
just
make
saying,
sure
like,
that you're educated.
we're just sitting on like around the watching TV or something.
Yeah.
I don't need to be playing,
Scrolling,
like, you know what I mean? And it's
yeah.
just, it's like this dopamine. I think it's like a dopamine thing you're chasing when you're just swiping up for no reason on your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just, I just needed a detox from it, I
Yeah,
think, and
yeah.
just
What would
take
you
a break.
say, Dom, to men raising boys? What do you think is the most important thing to?
That's a
There's
wide
a lot.
spectrum.
Because
There's a
so
lot.
many women are experiencing the byproduct of
Yeah.
what someone was raised with.
Mm.
So
Mm.
what would you say is number one, the most intentional thing for you? Because I know I definitely have a different level of intentionality when it comes to Maya and Kayla versus Ezra. You know, there's certain things that, like, I posted something on my stories the other day that I'm loving my son right so that he can love right, you know, because I understand that how he's raised is going to have an impact on the person that comes next.
But it's there's so many layers. Like, there's stages to this. I think there's another thing I saw where someone says there's stages to parenting, and it's only after you, like, after 18 or 20, that's when it's almost a friendship. If you allow those, like, a friendship beforehand, when they're supposed to be
parent child.
Yeah, there was like different levels they explained it, but it's like you put that in place beforehand, it's gonna skip other steps and damage them in the long run in effect. So for me, I'm at a stage where it's a foundation and you're pouring into them the key essentials for me. And as a man, it's not even just as a husband or preparing them for that, but how they see themselves and how they deal with problems internally.
What's your key essentials?
And I think that's what's important if it's coming from the father as well, because then
they're looking at different.
I see a lot of guys who their mum was their main input, and they're very dysfunctional in stepping into the male roles. I think the way God ordained it to be was that the man and the woman parent boys and girls together, so that balance goes in, so that balance comes out. With my parents weren't perfect at all, but we were parented equally by two people of the opposite sex.
Exactly, yeah.
And that
two
impacted
dynamics.
it impacted.
And you raised from experience, right?
What are your key essentials? Like, what are your top things?
Well, there's things I take from dad and mum, what they've taught me, and there's things I've learned throughout myself, and there's things that I learned about myself that I don't want, or I do want them to pick up. So I think one is like respect for yourself, respect for others. Have respect on how you want people to see you as well. Carry yourself with dignity. I think be teachable. I think they as brothers, they as well, their dynamic is something I've never experienced either. I always wanted brothers, but I was raised with sisters, so it's still a complete different dynamic to I'm sure they'll raise their kids very different to how I raised them, but from morning they're in each other's faces, so it's like, well, in night too with some of them, but I'm sure it can be a lot to never really have your own space. So I think what's something I didn't realize they probably need is individual time as well. Aside, which is, it's not easy to do when there's four of them and they're all in full-time education as well. So really you have a Saturday, if anything, or after school. So I think that's something I want to push more, find something that they enjoy and make that their thing that they do with me. Rather than always a group activity, but
that's what we try to do. Like, we even recognize that, because I know, like, we'll take away like Luca and Ezra together, so that it's not always the big crowd, because we can give them that time or do something with just Maya and Kayla, because so that you can give them the undivided time. I think it was John Charles Wesley's mum, 17 children.
Oh gosh.
She would individual every time. Week. She would spend time with each.
It has to be intentional, because
it's it's having that intentionality to have that time where it's just you and that child having conversations and just giving them that whole focus. And I think it's something that they would look forward to. I think my life would have been really different if I had that. And it's something wasn't talked about, you didn't know to do, but it's something that it would have changed me. It would have changed my relationship dynamically with my parents if I just had conversations with them, whereas I didn't have conversations with my mom or my dad. It was always do this, do that. You were being told to do things, but there wasn't a conversation that we had as a person. So you never felt like you were this person.
Well, it's hard to see something that you've never had unless you're intentionally trying to change something, or you intentionally want that for yourself. So I think everything we've picked up as what we adapted from our parents are things we longed for as well at the same time. So things we thought we would have benefited from. So it's always going to change. It's never going to be like, I'm going to do exactly what my parents done.
No.
Because there's always a form of, not negativity, but there's always a form of something that can be better or adapted. Obviously, everyone's individually different as well. So, but like same way Dad raised me as a, you know, ladies first, and always, you know, the way you're, what's the word? It's how you act when no one else is around is your integrity.
Yeah.
So whether you know, whoever, if you're someone that's homeless on the street or they're a millionaire, you treat the people the same, you know, and never value someone based on how they carry themselves, or that's not how you value someone off their character. So there's things I talk like on our way to school where we have conversations and stuff, but it's just always it's like having a block of marble, and for the next 20 years I have to chisel out this.
To what you want it to become.
Yeah, exactly. But right now I've got 4 blocks of marble I have to chisel out at the same time. So it's I think making sure that what's kept on that masterpiece is what it will benefit, not something that will cause cracks. Yeah.
That's good.
All right, we're out of time. Last thoughts, Mum.
Last thoughts. Children are a blessing, and you only get so long with them. And I've seen the negatives and I've seen the positives, and I never want to present to the world, as much as is in my power, someone that's going to be broken, somebody that's not going to be an asset to future partner, to society. I want to be able to contribute to into our world, or contribute towards whoever they marry, or etc., or the children that they have, something that's going to be impactful in a positive way. So it begins with my intentionality as a parent to create that human being, in as much as it is in my power, to be the best husband, to be the best wife, to be the best individual, and how they treat the world that they're going into. And I think if everyone took that responsibility seriously, the world would be a much nicer place. It would be a safer place. Marriages would be flourishing, not becoming a statistic, and we would raise incredible children, and that cycle would carry on. But it begins with us. There's no point wishing it over here. What can I contribute as a person into the lives of those that I have, for a very small season, I have the ability to impact?
I think for me, it's also remembering that it's like a two-way street. So for me, my kids teach me something every day, and it's just being open to that, because I think that you can become so familiar or so stuck in that role of parenting
and think you know
that
all.
like I know everything, and I think that for me, like, it's stopping and taking the time to actually enjoy them. Like, if everything is so structured and so planned and so regimented, you can't really have those spontaneous moments of laughter and enjoyment, and you know, carving out those times. Go on girls' holidays with your daughters, go on a guy's holiday with just you and your son or your sons or whatever. Like, just be intentional with those memories, but allow them to also feed into you, because I know my kids have, there are no words to describe what my kids have done for me. You know, yes, I've done stuff for them, but they've changed my life, and it's because of who they are.
For me, I just want to talk to the men. Like, there's guys that are stuck in a chapter of what they think they'll lose, like from settling down or having kids, and they're when the time's right. I was never ready. I was never okay. Now let's have some kids.
Mm.
You know, we have everything in order. It's like, well, let's get married. You know,
Yeah.
I've built us our £1 million house, and you're ready to move. Like this whole perception of guys having that they need to have everything in order before they settle down. Or we stepped in probably. I'll tell you what, I made a bad investment just before we bought our first house, and Deesh was 9 months pregnant. And that's something I had to deal with at the time. So it's never going to be, even if you do have those, you bought a house and things, there's things going to come up in life where you have to go through together that can make you stronger. Those are the things that build that foundation. It's not happy times, picnicking, or not. Those hard times are what make you and what makes you stay together. And in terms of kids, I think there's a lot of guys that's stuck in this thing where they want to either the singleness or they enjoy their own company. Or I promise you, being a father is one of the best things that can happen to you. When you realize how grateful, you'll be so grateful when you look at your kids and how they love you and how they look at you. It's like it's like a feeling I can't even describe to you unless you're a father yourself. Coming home to kids that, you know, love you, or picking them up from preschool, when they see you run, like, come through the door and they're like, the smile on their face, they're running, daddy, 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 daddy. It's like, that's not going to last forever. You know, it's going to be where they're, you know, you pick them up and, you know, like Luke and I was like, hi, Dad. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, but it's like that feeling of just having someone look at you like you are the greatest thing in the world. I want to be like you. Like, Dad is so strong. That is like, it's like no club or no whatever you're doing right
someone's
now.
hero.
It's literally you're someone's hero, and it makes you look at yourself like, I need to make
Superman.
sure. Yeah, I cannot let this person down.
Underneath my shirt.
I cannot let this person down. I can't. It makes you look at yourself like, I need to make sure I have, like, you know, you need to either get your money up or you need to do whatever you need to put. I need to make sure these kids are looked after. Yes, it's responsibility, but it's such something that will impact you greater than anything else that you can imagine.
Yeah, I think it's
don't be scared of the next chapter.
Yeah, parenting is the most rewarding thing. It's not your career.
It's a lifetime reward.
I promise you. It's you know, most people our world's focus is career.
Or hobbies.
Listen, I can lose that job. I can live without it. I'll find another one. I can lose the house. I can lose the car. I can lose all my money. All replaceable. But I want to leave you with this, guys. The family, your family is the most valuable thing you have. They are irreplaceable. Money, cars, houses, materialism are all replaceable. You can live without them, may not like it when you lose them, but your family, that is the most important thing that you live, breathe, eat and sleep for. That's a wealthy person. It's not the money you have in your bank account. It's not the car you drive. It's not the watch on your wrist. It's not the position that you've acquired. You can have PhDs till it's coming out your ears. But you know what? You are the richest when you have a family and you're governing it well. That's wealth. That's true wealth. So go get rich. Invest in your family, invest in your wife, invest in your spouse, because they will love you back for that. And the rewards, they're just we're enjoying the wealth of family now. We've got 12 beautiful grandchildren, and we thank God for that. What can take that place? Nothing. Can't think of one thing that could fulfill what they bring. No.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you.